Oh boy. Oh boy.
Oh, welcome back to another
Welcome
episode.
back.
Welcome back. Welcome back. DMD, Dad Man Dude. Thank you for joining
Dad,
us on another
man,
episode.
dude.
Yes, sir. Yes,
I
sir.
love the name of our podcast. Can I
I
just
do.
say that?
You know what, man? Like, I do too. Like, I really enjoy the name. Like, it's okay. Let me tell you a story. So, I went to the bank, right? And like, I was like, kind of like transferring some money and stuff like that. And like for the first time ever, it was actually pretty cool. Like the banker was like, "What is Dad Man Dude?" And I was like, oh, "Interesting question, my man." Right? So like I was telling him what it was, and then he was like, "Dude, that's such a cool concept. Like it's a cool name." Right? And I was like, I know, bitch. I know it is." Right? um, I really
You
didn't say
know that
bitch.
shit, motherfucker.
Yeah, like I'm like, fuck yeah, yeah, I know. No. But no, man, like, it just flows nicely. Like it's exactly who we are.
Right.
It's a feeling, right? Like
Right.
it's
I
it's some
agree.
yeah, it's something that we just it depends on the days. On one day you could be a total dad, on another day you could be a man, right? And on another day you're just a dude, you
Right.
know? So I am with you. I absolutely love our name. It's amazing. Um I'm excited to do this again.
Me too.
Um,
And I just want to throw this out there that this has been very therapeutic for me. And I think a lot of it is hearing the similarities between the two of us. And
absolutely.
and how like we haven't really talked about it. Like just to give you guys a little bit of an insight. So we haven't really like we just come on for an hour, kind of talk back and forth. Maybe if there's some stuff that's funny that we see throughout the week or whatnot, we write it down. But realistically, this is very off the cuff. And
Yeah.
you guys want to see us talk about certain things, then definitely hit us up in the comments. Don't forget to like, don't forget to share, subscribe, please. Like, hopefully, you like it the first time enough to where you come back.
Yeah. I mean, support two dudes. I mean, shit. Like, like Brandon said, it's stuff that just comes off the top of the head. It's things that, you know, we are questioning throughout the day. And I have nobody else to really share these thoughts with other than you, who ends up going like, you know what, man, that's true. And then it validates the fucking insanity that's in my brain.
Dude, and the
Um,
validation leaves me in such a great place.
oh, absolutely. 100% I agree with you. Like it it actually makes me feel like I'm not alone because don't get me wrong, like there are times where like I get pissed over little things, right? Like and I'm talking about like tiny things.
Oh, yeah.
Like I may come home and like I have to go to the restroom and then there's like no toilet paper on the toilet paper roll. That right there ruins my day. But then like when I come and tell you about it and then you're like, dude, me too. And then you go, but you know what? There's wet wipes. Like that not only validates me, but then it also adds another layer to where I can actually find an alternative solution to it. And then I can walk away from this and be a better person overall.
Absolutely. Like,
So
have you ever been so angry because you walk down at 4 o'clock in the morning and every light in your house is on? Like, the other day, the couch was watching the TV for like 4 hours. I'm like, guys, I know I sound like your dad, but turn it off. It's not free.
Okay, were you one of those kids that like your parents used to like yell at you if you left anything on?
Oh my God. Dude, I can remember getting yelled at. Like, I can remember waking up, turning the light on to go to the bathroom and like getting yelled at, like, why'd you leave the light on? And I was like, I just turned it on to pee.
Right.
Sorry. Like, dude, I like, and I was never ever taught how to use a thermostat. They were like,
That's so
nah, you
true.
ain't touching that shit.
That is so
Nope.
true. That is so true, dude. Like no matter what temperature it was, you weren't allowed. Like
No.
you could be like like in a tank top in underwear because you're so hot and you're just like, Mom, can I turn this down like another 5 degrees? Like she'd be like, nope.
Nope. Turn that fan up. Turn that
Right.
fan up.
Right. Right. Or she would just be like, why don't you go get a wet paper towel? You'll be fine. Right. But like, nowadays, right? I don't know about you, but I'm not as strict as my parents were with that.
I can say that I'm not as vocal about it as my parents were. The thought goes through my head though. Like I feel like that's a form of PTSD. Like
It,
I can't unlive that. So like I think about it every time. Like,
no,
but do I open my mouth? Not so much.
no, I'm with you, man. Like it's one of those things where I remember as a kid, my mom used to be like I could be in the bathroom, right? And then she would knock, and then like she'd be like, what are you doing with the light on? And then I'm like, I mean, I'm in the bathroom, right? And then she'd be like, but it's 6 p.m. There's still light out. Like you'll be okay. Like, like I don't know if your parents did that. My mom did that, like on a regular. And now, like, I don't think that my kids have any idea what that's like at all. And I'm also not that type of guy. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I think about it. Like, I may like cuss underneath my breath. Like, I may kind of do one of those like motherfucking like son of a bitch. Like, you know what I'm saying? And then kind of turn
Right.
it off for them. But I never go back, and I'm never like, hey, you forgot to turn off the light. I don't do that. Like I just
I don't do the like the real soul digging, digs like I received. It's more like I go up to go to bed and I'm like, all right, Paisley, time to turn all the lights on the second floor off because you're only one person. Like,
like I
um,
I remember as a kid, dude, like I used to like run to my mom's room, right? And be like, Mom, I'm terrified, right? And like I would be like, can I please turn the light on? And she'd be like, no. Like there's nothing here. You have nothing to worry about. What you should be afraid of is like this ass whooping that I'm gonna give you if you leave the light on again, right? And then like you just went back like to bed with this like shame of like this walk of shame, just kind of like, well, I guess I'm gonna die because the boogie monster's right around the corner, but I can't see it because my mom doesn't let me turn the light on.
bro, and then you start staring at the moon. And then
Absolutely.
you realize how much light is coming from the moon. Your eyes adjust, and you're like, "All right, I got night vision. I'm good."
Dude, that's depressive as fuck. Like like that's just sad. But it's
Right?
true. It's true. That was our childhood, man. That was our
Yeah.
childhood. Like the other thing too, like now that we're talking about childhood, it's hilarious to me that like I grew up I've always said that I've grown up poor, and it's not necessarily poor. Like it wasn't like we didn't have money to eat. That's never the case. But like there was no way that I was having McDonald's out of the blue. Like that shit was planned. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
That was
Like that's
quarterly.
right. That was right. That was like the budget that we had where we would plan to go to McDonald's. It wasn't necessarily like out of the blue. Like now, like I could be driving down the road and I probably had like a steak dinner, and then 5 minutes later, like I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna get a Big Mac. Like I can do that, right? Like
I'm gonna get a
I didn't
McDouble. I'm just saying.
right. Like I never did that as a kid at all. I Not once did I do that. And my kids have no idea what that's like. And part of me ends up going like, well, maybe I'm a shitty parent because I am not making them go through that. But then there's the other side of me where I go, well, you know what? Like if I can afford it, let me do it. Right.
Right.
Like, and that was the thing. Like when I was a kid, like maybe my mom, I mean, I grew up like, my mom was a single mom until I was like, a teenager. And then, she met my stepfather who, to me that dude is my father. Like
Oh yeah.
no doubt he's just my dad. Um and like even to that, like I remember like my parents were always hardcore about saving wherever they could. right? And like I think that's one of those things that like I still try to do that, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, like I am also the type that like if I go to the grocery store and I have to decide on buying like the double stuffed Oreos or the double stuffed O cookies, right? Because they're the off-brand. Like I'm gonna get the double stuffed Oreos.
Absolutely.
But my parents didn't do that. Like my
Well,
here's what my parents would do. My parents would be like, "Look, we're gonna go to the dollar store and we're gonna buy some animal crackers, and then you can smear some icing in there and then wedge them together, and there you have an Oreo." That would be my parents. That would be my parents.
dude, I ate many a ghetto Oreo. I'm just saying, like, and I'll be honest with you, like, I while you were talking about that, one thing that I really took from it is I think back of like my mom. So my mom was a single mom, uh, literally in her whole life. She never really remarried. She had boyfriends here and there, but none of them were like crazy serious.
Mhm.
But she was really awesome. But I can only remember going out to dinner with my mom twice in my life. And one of those times was for my birthday. The other time was because my grandmother took her out to dinner for her birthday. So like it was a very special occasion thing. It wasn't, like we go out randomly on a Tuesday, like
Right.
because I don't feel like cooking, like
No,
or because whatever. And like if my kid now was forced to go back right now to the way that we grew up, dude, you want to talk about some hurt feelings? Like I don't know. I don't know that my kid would eat.
exactly. Like that's and again, man, like I've gone through this whole like know train of thought of like what my childhood was like, the things that I've been through, like the things that like we did and stuff like that. And like even I mean, my mom didn't have a car for the longest time, so it was one of those situations that like we had to like walk everywhere. Like everything was about like, you know,
Or ride the bus. I got
like
a
dude,
bus pass when I was like 11.
dude, I swear so I'm gonna go to hell for this, but whatever. I was already like on a fast track to hell, anyways. But like, I think my mom was seriously practicing to be an apostle because like we walked everywhere, bro. Like everywhere. Like Forrest Gump ain't got shit on us. Like we used to walk everywhere, dude. Like, and it didn't matter how far away it was. Like, and yes, we rode the bus. Like, so my mom used to get car sick a lot. She still does, unless she's like driving, which at the time she didn't even know how to drive, right? Because she's never owned a car, right? So she didn't know how to drive. So like when you used to ride the bus, it was like a once in a lifetime because again, it was one of those situations where like she used to get sick, right? Because being car sick. So then we used to walk everywhere, man, everywhere. Like I'm not like I said, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I'm not that
The
far
walking
off.
champion of Silver Spring.
Absolutely, man. Like
Well,
I
and
can't.
not to get too far off that topic, but dude, I have to quote Dave Chappelle here.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
My parents made sure that they did just well enough for me to grow up poor around white people. Like, and dude, like, I laughed my ass off when I first heard him say that because it wasn't like I'm white, but I grew up the poorest out of all the people around me, which I don't know. There was certain things like growing up I can remember as a teenager I got frustrated about,
Right.
but at the same time I feel like it was a good thing. It made me realize pretty quick that the stuff didn't matter as much. Don't get me
Mhm.
wrong. I'm not saying that it doesn't because I feel like every time I buy myself something, it's fuck you to my childhood.
Right.
So I very much relate to your grocery store comment there of when I'm at the grocery store, if I have to pick between the hood Oreos and the real Oreos, I am getting the real double stuffed. And if there's like one that's not on sale, I'll buy it.
Right, right, exactly. I do the same thing, dude. Like, like I'm even to the point where like there's a piece of me that like growing up, we used a lot of coupons. I
Oh yeah.
hate coupons now, dude. I hate them.
Dude,
I
I don't
can't
even
stand
like the
them.
coupon section doesn't even make it to like the countertop.
Right.
It goes right to the garbage.
Like like this is how fucked up my brain is in this aspect, right? Like, when you go to the grocery store and that thing spits out like an automatic coupon, like I get insulted by that. Like I'm like, bitch, does it look like I can't afford this shit? Because
But at the
that's
same
how
time,
traumatized I am.
bro, but at the same time, do you ever find yourself going like if you want a very specific thing, like you will find I will find myself going everywhere to find the best deal though.
I, I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. Like you would rather spend like $90 worth in gas to go buy like
Because
a
I can get it
pair
for $10 cheaper.
right, because you could get like a pair of socks for like 5 for 20 as opposed to 2 for 10. Yeah, I'm 100% with you. It makes no sense.
Or like even if it's like, okay, I want this pair of sunglasses, right? Well, let me look around online at like 5 different sites to see where the best price is.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of loops back to a previous episode. I believe the first episode. Amazon, my dude.
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
I like you scroll through Amazon, you search for one thing and you get the same thing 96 times and they're all different prices. So you're like lowest price, but that one won't be here till next month. Nah, I need
Right.
that shit tomorrow.
Right.
I'm paying top
Right.
dollar today, boys.
Which is it's crazy, right? That we decide that like we need that item tomorrow, even though we don't really need it tomorrow. But that our brain is like, well, you can afford it. I mean, you might as well get it, right?
Yeah.
So, going back to like being poor, like I was poor to where I was in thrift stores before thrift stores were cool. Like my thing was like, right? It was a necessity.
Bro, I
Like I mean, like,
remember so I remember being in high school and two things. I lucked out. I'm a big dude. I was a big dude then. My uncle is a smaller dude. And he was like 20. He was in his 20s when I was in, going into middle school, right? Right when you
mhm.
first start caring about what you wear.
Right.
Dude, I swear to God, all through middle school, I wore his clothes.
Oh yeah, I did the
But
same thing.
my first
I didn't wear his clothes. Like that just sounded weird. Like I
that would
wore
be
his clothes
awkward.
too.
That would be weird.
That'd be really weird.
But no, like I can remember my first pair of Tommy jeans, Tommy Hilfiger jeans. That was a thrift store. That was a
Mhm,
thrift store buy. My
mhm.
first Abercrombie and Fitch button down. That was a thrift store buy. That was a
Yep.
thrift store buy.
Yep.
Like that's where I did not know there was so many places to clothes shop, like
I
or
didn't
like
either.
back to school shopping. Like now, like we would go to like the standalone Foot Locker to get shoes, and I would get
Yes.
the on sales.
Yes.
Had to be on
Yes.
sale, and
Yes.
then we would go to the thrift store, and I would get a whole bunch of new clothes. It was
That's
cool.
that's exactly what we did too. Like we would, and what's funny is that like now that you're mentioning, like talking about all this stuff, right? It's funny because I remember a time when my mom is a beast at a thrift store. Like my mom can find stuff that like I have no idea where people get this stuff. Like I am a superficial buyer. Like I'm a shitty buyer in general. Like I go into the thrift store and I kind of do like the skim, right? And then I'm like, oh, this looks cool, right? My mom doesn't. My mom like hunts in the thrift store, and she always found some really good shit, really good shit. But then like I remember one time we went to the thrift store, dude, and like I saw a friend of mine at the thrift store. And like this is so stupid. I don't now that I think about it, it's the dumbest thing ever. But like I remember I hid from him
Oh
at the
yeah.
thrift store because I didn't want him to see me at the thrift store. But his ass was at the thrift store too. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
and that's the funniest part because I feel like we just took turns. Like we all had different shifts at the thrift store. Because
oh,
like
absolutely.
I know, don't get me wrong, some of the kids, a lot of the kids that I grew up around had money, but the few that didn't, like we all knew, but we all played along with whatever, and we were all just kids. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like we
right.
didn't really make a big deal out of it. But it's like you would see somebody you know in the thrift store, and all of a sudden you need to go in housewares. You know that's we're all done then.
Yeah, no, absolutely, dude. Absolutely. Like I even remember like because like the thing was that like back then, I don't know for you, but for me, I remember that like, talking about how poor you were was like taboo, right? And it was
Right.
like it like because you were like it was frowned upon, right?
Oh yeah.
And like I remember like people used to be like, "Oh shit, dude, what'd you get for Christmas?" And like I used to have to lie because I didn't want to deal with the oh I didn't really get anything, right? Because like
Right.
I didn't want people to go, "Aw," right? Like I
Right. You
hated
didn't
that
want people to
shit.
feel bad.
Right, right. Like, and the thing is, like, I also I didn't want to feel bad because I knew that like my mom was struggling, man. Like, I mean,
Right.
like she didn't have the means to like get me all this stuff. So I remember like I used to have to lie about that. And like I remember one time I lied, man. Like they were like, "What'd you get for Christmas?" And I was like, "A computer." And like they were like, "Well, what brand?" And I was like, I don't, I don't know. I have no idea. Like I had to lie. Like that's so sad to me. It's sad.
Bro,
Um,
I got a PlayStation 3 years in a row.
right, right, right. Exactly, exactly. Yeah, like I
And
mean,
I
like
will tell you that 15 years later, one of my boys that I grew up with um called me out on it at a bar. It's like, yo, remember when we were in elementary school? How'd you get a PlayStation 3 years in a row? It's like my mom was broke. Shut up.
no, dude, seriously, like it's so funny how times have changed and how like
And bro, do you
what
not feel bad if you don't go crazy for your kids now too?
oh
Like
yeah,
I
absolutely.
personally have the the broke kid guilt. Like
Yes, yes.
where I now, I mean, dude, if it's not over the top for both of my kids, I like it's nothing at all. Like
Exactly.
it's like I'll refinance the house to make it
Right.
happen. You know what
Like,
I
I
mean?
mean, it's almost to the point where like I don't know if you do this. I do this. It's almost to the point where like if I want to buy myself something, I have to buy something else for somebody else so that I feel like I got what I deserved. Isn't that like
Absolutely.
I do
Absolutely.
that all the time, dude. Like and if I don't do that, I feel like shit. Like even if my kids don't need it, like I'm still like for example, like if I go out and I buy a pair of shoes, I feel compelled that I have to buy my kids
Everybody
a
shoes.
pair of right. I have to buy everybody's shoes, right? In order to feel like I did my part because otherwise I don't deserve the shoes.
Right.
It's so sad.
And the other thing is I find myself like I almost feel like I don't know why I do it because I don't have to, but it's like I have to trick uh Lacey and Paisley into going where I want to go buy something. And then I'm like, okay, you guys buy everything you want, blah, blah, blah. Here you go. Do this, do that, do this, do that. And then, bam, I'm going to go get the thing that I came here for. It's like,
Right, right. I do the same thing, man. I do the exact same thing. Like, and I don't know if it's that mentality of like, that subconscious feeling that's built into you where you're just like, you almost feel bad for having good things, right? Because again, when you grow up, like, you didn't have good things. And it's funny because you mentioned that story about um your uncle, right? And how like he basically was the one to give you his hand me downs, right?
Right.
I had a similar situation where like I grew up with like uncles who were, you know, roughly like anywhere from, you know, 8 to like, I don't know, 30 years older than me. I'm kind of throwing a random number out there. I didn't really do the math, but that seems right. So just go with it.
Yeah.
Um, but like I remember like I used to get their clothes all the time. I used to get their stuff, and like it didn't matter if it like fit well. Like I just if it if excuse me, if it was capable of actually going on my body, it was going on my body.
It went. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
no matter what.
Like, dude, I did get a dude, it was fucking yellow. Yellow, like bright yellow Abercrombie and Fitch vest that I got from my uncle. And I'm telling you, when I got it, that thing looked like a tent on top of me. And I think I stopped wearing it like, you know, I was an adult.
Like you wore it yesterday.
I haven't worn it. That thing would be way too small now. Um, but yeah, like I mean, I can remember it coming down like almost to my knees when I put it on the first time,
Yeah.
and then I can remember it being like, "Oh, I can't get it on anymore." When I stopped wearing it, like I wore that thing forever, dude.
No, dude, like, and you tell that story, and I also remember another story where, like, I remember, like, I got an award at school, where, like, I ended up getting like good grades, and like, you know, it was top of the class. But like, I mean, this was like middle school. It wasn't like, you know, high school or anything else. But in middle school, and I had to borrow my uncle's suit to go there. And like, dude, I've seen pictures of this suit. That shit did not fit me. Like, like I'm embarrassed that I wore that back then. And like again, I think about it now, right? And I'm like, would I I don't even know how to phrase it. Like it's almost doesn't seem real that that time happened, right? Like it almost like my brain just kind of went, you know, like that happened, but fuck it. It erase it. It's not a memory there anymore, right? So when I look at
Right.
those pictures, like I'm like, what? Who would do this to this child? And then I go look at it, and I'm like, oh yeah, my mom did. That's right.
They
It was
let
my
me out of
mom.
the house looking like this.
Right, right,
Like,
right.
bro, and that's the thing is I recently looked back at some old pictures. My dad had sent me a bunch that he found. He just like snapped pictures with his phone. It was all like bad quality, but it was the thought that counted, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But I look at it, and even some of them were from when I was teenager, like even like 17, 18, like right around that age. And dude, like I'm almost glad that I moved in with my dad when I was in high school, because where I moved to, uh, it was definitely a poorer area. So you could be a badass and wear a Walmart t-shirt. So like I'm like 17, like dude, that's what it was. It was freaking
So
some
like
jeans.
your bar moved like
It did.
it
It
moved
did.
in the graph, right?
It
So
totally
like
moved in the
you
graph.
still had the same clothes,
Right.
but now the clothes that you wore are now top notch.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, I get
Right.
it. I get it. I
So
absolutely get
like
it.
that was a little bit of a weird thing for me. Like it was definitely more comfortable, you know, for a little while. But then I realized like that's one of those places that you don't get out of if you don't do something drastic.
Absolutely.
So like it became very real. But again, we don't talk about people's growing up. We don't I can remember even as like 18, like You don't talk about people's financial status.
No, not at all,
Um,
man. Not at all. I mean, like, even dude, like, I remember growing up in the situation where, like, I've always been kind of decent at sports. Like, I'm not the best. Don't get me wrong. Like, like, I can hold my own in certain sports, but there's no way that, like, I'm walking into, like, a basketball court and just start dunking on fools like that. That's not me, right? But I could hold my own, and I felt that, like,
I
if
could
I
shoot a
actually
mean three with no pressure.
right, right. But, like, I feel that, like, if I had gone into competitive sports, right, I think that I could have, like, made something out of myself with it, right? But the thing was that, like, again, we were, I don't know what else to call it, poor, right? Where my mom would have to make the decision of, like, look, can I put you to the sport, or are we gonna, like, pay our rent, right? So, like, I didn't play sports because of that.
Right.
And, like, that's one of the things that I look at now, right? Like, I look at, like, my kids, and they have all these extracurricular activities, like, like Alex, for example, right? Like, my son Alex, like, we buy him cleats every year. Do you know how many times I wore my cleats back then?
Oh, like
Okay,
3-4 years.
erase that. Do you know how many times I didn't have cleats and I just wore, like, the beat up shoes from, like, 5 years ago to play sports,
Hell yeah.
right?
Hell yeah.
So no, man. I mean, like, times have definitely changed, and, like, now it's more. It seems like it's okay to talk about, the financial state of your family, and, like, it's also okay for you to go. We don't have the means, which I think is cool, right? I also think that there's a piece of it that's actually real. It's relieving, right? Like, you don't have to worry about that stuff. But I remember as a kid, man, I did have to hide that a lot. I mean, even people used to be like, hey, man, did you get that shirt at the thrift store? Because I've never seen it before, right? Like, people used to say that, right? And I'd be like, no, right? Because, like, they may have said it jokingly, right?
Right.
But I knew
It may
damn
not
well
have
I
been
got it.
a dig, but no.
Right, like, I knew damn well I got it from the thrift store, but I had to lie and be like, no, right? And almost like, almost to the point where you go, fuck, is this motherfucker's shirt? And my mom bought it, and he knows that it's his shirt. You know what I mean? Like, I had those experiences all the time growing up, man, all the time.
But I will say I got to give a shout out to my extended family, like to my grandparents, great grandparents, because dude, like, don't get me wrong, they weren't out here making it rain, but they, like, my grandparents specifically, and then my great grandparents kind of followed suit. They knew the situation that my mom was in, so they would, like, instead of getting me a whole bunch of stuff for Christmas or getting me a birthday gift or whatever, they would give me something like, clothes, but like fancy
Hmm.
clothes, or like
Hmm.
I got sneakers for my birthday all the time.
Hmm. Hmm.
The only thing that I have to say sucks is my birthday is in December. So
Oh,
I got a lot of, oh, we haven't seen you. Like, my entire family would avoid my ass from December 2nd till Christmas.
right, right. So it
Like,
was a
nah, we're
double
busy.
up,
You can't come over.
right? So it's a double up.
And then
Oh my
and
god.
then it's, oh, here, happy birthday, Merry Christmas.
Right. Merry Christmas, Happy 4th of July, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy, right? Like, everything compiled into one, just so, like, they didn't have to buy you another gift. But no, man, like, I
Right.
I, I went through the same thing too. Like, and now that you're throwing shout outs, like, I definitely, man, shout out to my parents. I definitely understood the struggle. Shout out to, my, like you said, my extended family, which were my uncles. Like, they always bought me stuff, and they understood what that was like too, because they grew up in the same thing, and they kind of had the realization, right, that they were like, well, okay, now I can afford it. Let me get it, right? Like, and it's at that level that I am now, right? Where, like, now, like, if I can afford it, I'm gonna get it, right?
Oh yeah.
Like, no questions asked, right? But yeah, man, like, like I said, I wish, part of me wishes that I could have today's environment when I grew up, because it would have been a lot easier. Like it would have been easy for you to just go like, oh, like I shop at the thrift store, and people would have been like, oh shit, that's cool, bro. Like, fuck, you got vintage shit, right? Like, and it like back then it was like, oh, you shop at the thrift store, you got the shit nobody else wants. Got it. Okay. But today, everybody's like, oh, you got vintage, you got throwbacks, right? Like, no,
Right.
motherfucker, I got the shit that was like $3 that we could afford. That's what we got. Um,
Right.
but yeah, man. I mean, I like I said, I'm grateful for that upbringing. I think it made me who I am. I'm appreciative for the things that I learned through that process. And like I said, I mean, the shitty side of me wishes that today's environment happened back then, but shit happens for a reason, and I think I'm a better person because of it.
Right. And like, I mean, my thing is I don't know that we would appreciate it the way that we do now. If things were like this back then, like, don't get me wrong, I wish they were just a little bit better. Like I could have done with a scotch better, just a
Agreed.
scotch.
Agreed.
But no, I definitely shout out to my mom, because like, even though we're sitting here kind of like bitching about it a little bit, and like, I swear to God, even like nobody has had the amount of fun that we have growing up, because something about broke moms, they make everything fun.
Yes, they do.
Like,
That's a fact.
they literally figure out a way to make everything fun.
That's
Like,
that's a fact, dude. Like it's so funny that you say that, because I remember one time in elementary school, I got my ass whooped. Um, and like, so my mom was always the type that taught me like, don't fight, don't like, don't get into trouble, try to be nice to everybody, don't get into shit. So there was this kid, man, that used to bully me all the fucking time. And like he used to like fucking punch me in the back of the head. Like he used to like make fun of me. He used to like, just straight up bully me, right? And every time I would come home, and like I would come home crying. And my mom, like one day, this is where like I find it funny that you say that moms make shit funny. Like one day I came home and my mom was like, okay, that's enough. And I was like, well, what do you mean? Like, and I immediately like wipe my tears, right? And I'm like, what do you mean that's enough? Like, I thought like she was saying that's enough crying. So I stopped. And then she goes, that's enough. If you come home with an ass whooping again, I'm gonna personally whoop your ass. Like, and I was like, okay, like, are you giving me
I can
permission
throw
to,
hands. I can
yeah,
throw hands.
right. I'm
I
like,
can
like
throw
mom,
hands.
right. I'm like, mom, like I can fight. Like you're giving me permission. And then she was like, listen to me again. If you get your ass whooped one more time, I'm whooping your ass. And like I remember I went back the next day and I fought the dude. I got my ass whooped. Don't get me wrong. Like I got my ass whooped. But I remember coming home and like she was like, what happened today? Right. And I was like, I fought, I got my ass whooped. And then she's like, but you're not crying. So then she was like, I'm gonna teach you how to fight. And my mom was the one that taught me how to fight, dude. Like, like she actually started to like, knuckle up and stuff like that. And my mom fights like a dude, right? Because she, like my mom has 7 brothers. She grew up with all of them, right? So like she throws fists. She does not do the hair pulling or anything like that, right? So I remember she squared up with me and she whooped my ass, dude. Like she whooped my ass. But like, but she did it in a way where like she tried to make it fun, right? Like and it sounds so funny that I say that she made the ass whooping fun. But like, she made it fun because she used to like square up, right? And then like she used to like jab and like, like punches and stuff like that. And like I remember like she used to play little games with me in order to get me to get to that level where I felt comfortable. And I knew, like now that I think about it, like in retrospect, like she wasn't really teaching me how to fight. Like what she was teaching me was self-assurance, right? And
Right.
she knew that like if I had that confidence that I could probably hold my own. And it's true. I mean, like in
Right.
later years, like I definitely held my own. I'm not a fighter, don't get me wrong. Like I talk a lot of shit and I am also probably one of the biggest instigators that there are in the world. but I also don't like to fight. And the reason why I don't like to fight is because to me, like the fight never ends. Do you know what I'm saying? Like you fight somebody and then you whoop their ass, and then the next day they're gonna bring a friend that can whoop your ass, right? And it just doesn't end up well. But I do remember her doing that all the time with me to try to build my confidence. And she used to play these little games and like, try to help me in the process. So, for that, like I'm super grateful, man. Like overall.
Absolutely. And I mean, don't get me wrong. She was probably right when she said I needed to man the fuck up,
Right, right, right.
Getting told that, you probably sometimes you need that too.
Yeah.
Like you need a little bit of like get out there, and I got the same conversation, man. Like if you come home all pissed off and upset one more time, and you don't just do something about it to not be that way anymore, forget it. You're getting your
Right.
ass whooped either way, and it's like, all
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So then it's like, okay, I went. I had a very, very. It's crazy how close of a scenario it was, and I walked right up to the kid and I punched him as hard as I could, and it didn't do anything. But I didn't exactly get my ass whooped because he actually fell down and then started crying, and then I felt terrible and helped him get back up. And
So really the ass whooping wasn't effective, like,
no,
because you
no,
felt bad
not at
at the
all.
end of the day. But no, man,
And I
like,
felt
yeah, it's funny that you say that. Like, there was another time. Like again, I didn't fight a lot of times. Like, I know people that used to fight like every week. That wasn't me. I mean, like I can count the number of times that I fought. But there was another time where I fought in school, and they called my mom, and they were like, your son's in trouble. Like he ended up fighting a kid. The kid's nose is bleeding. Like, that you have to like talk to him. So my mom was like, put him on the phone, right? And I remember like I got on the phone, dude, and I was terrified. I was fucking terrified, man. Like I grabbed the phone and like I was like, hello, and then like she was like, did he deserve it? Like I was like, yes. And she was like, okay, pretend like you're really sad. Pretend like I'm angry at you, but good job. And she was like, I'll see you when you get home. Like I remember her doing that, dude. Like, and again, like I love that about my mom because she gave me the confidence, man. Like again, like I don't think she knew how to teach me how to whoop somebody's ass, right? Because like that wasn't her thing either, but I think that she knew that she could help my confidence through that process. And again, for that, like I am super grateful, so some of those things, like having that almost like the hard knock life, right, like kind of helps you be a better person. And I think having those disadvantages put you in a place where like it prepared you to be in a realm where like you're okay with getting like shit thrown at you, right? Like at this point in my life, like I don't care if people like talk about me. Like, I mean, there are times where I'm gonna get mad, but like I'm not gonna let that shit bother me as much.
right.
And it's because of the fact of how my upbringing was, where like there's like to me like there's nothing worse than what I dealt with as a kid, right? And again, like don't get me wrong, like I want to be sensitive to the people that actually have had a hard experience, right? Those people that have had like you know the unfortunate events of like having you know people do really bad things to them, both from like a physical standpoint, sexual, whatever it may be. I don't compare myself to those people. So, I'm
Right.
sorry that you had that life. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like, from the perspective of like, being made fun of, like, being bullied, being all these things, like it made me a better person. And I know that like the disadvantages that I had kind of led to that. But again, I'm grateful for who I am today. So
Absolutely. I mean, and I think that's an important piece, though. Is I one of my favorite things to say. I definitely learned a lot about what not to do from both of my parents. You know what I mean? And
mhm,
it's kind
mhm.
of like, don't get me wrong. I don't think it was on purpose, but like I don't know. I can remember me and my mom being more of a team sometimes,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you know, because of it was just me and her, you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
and that was irreplaceable. And I can tell you that I think that connection led to other things in my life. I think it leads to, I've always appreciated the women in my life because I know that my mom had it rough. So maybe if my dad wasn't such an asshole, then you know, they would still be happy, whatever. So I don't know. I find that I do all kinds of different things. That kind of, I feel like that's where it came from. Is the same thing is so, and I kind of like the way that I am. So,
No, I think, like you said something that was really, it hits true for me too. It hits home, right? Where you said that, your mom was like almost like your partner in crime, right? Like, dude, like I have so many stories about my mom, and this is the last story I'm gonna tell you today about my mom. But like there was one time, man, like so my mom my mom was a teacher in El Salvador, right? So when she came to the United States, and we can get into that in another episode as to why we came here, but when we came to the United States, like she kind of let go of the teaching career because again, like she didn't know that her teaching career could transfer. She didn't know how to handle that, right? And again, like she always back when in the days where I grew up, right? Like if you were an immigrant, you were like at the bottom, right?
oh yeah.
Like you were low level, right? So she decided to like kind of pursue with like taking care of the elderly, right? So she took care of this gentleman, and I'm never gonna forget him. He was like my grandfather. He taught me a lot of good things. Like the man was amazing. So he passed away. I was away, and he passed away. I came back home, and like I remember, like my mom told me that he had passed away, and we were both like heartbroken, right? Like we were like teary eyed and like sad and everything negative feeling that you can think of.
Hmm.
So because of who we were, right, we were like, let's let's go get something to eat. So we went and got something to eat. On the way to get something to eat, it was like a snowy day, right? There was like snow on the ground, and these like fucking teenage kids, dude. I was probably at the time 18, 19, maybe something like that. And like there was like these teenage kids that were like probably like anywhere from 16 to 18, right? And my mom was driving down the road, and this kid grabs a snowball and throws it at the car, right? So like, I respectfully, because I didn't want to, put my mom in a really bad situation, right? I told my mom, I was like, Mom, can you slow down? Like I rolled down the window. I like looked at the dude and I was like, dude, don't do that again. Right. Because again, like we were in a really bad place because of the death of the person that we considered our
Hmm.
grandfather, right? Um, so like as I'm rolling the window, dude, the motherfucker grabs a snowball and throws it again, right? So I hopped out of the car and like I start like booking and chasing this guy down, and I finally caught him down, right? And I like pinned him down, and then like I hit him one time. That was it, right? And I was like, dude, I told you not to do that. At that moment, the realization in my head came to me where I was like, fuck my mom. Like I'm doing this shit in front of my mom. Like, oh my God, what fuck, like I'm embarrassing my mom. Well, I turn around, dude. My mom has the other guy pinned down, and she's beating the shit out of him, dude. Like, like, and I went up to her, and like I had to pull her back, and then like I like put her back in the van, and then when we got in the car, like I was like, Mom, I had no idea you were gonna do that. She's like, Well, I saw you hop out, so fuck, I had to hop out too. Like, but that's I appreciate that about her, and I appreciate that she again gave me the confidence, right? Like I was never this kid that got in trouble. I did dumb shit, don't get me wrong, but like I felt that she was also very understanding of the fact that I was in this stage of my life where I was going to experiment and I was creating my own identity, and like she respected that throughout the process. And she also knew that like there were things that I needed in order to like have I don't want to say a good career, but like she knew that I needed to have certain things in order to get through high school. And that's where things changed, right? Like she used to still take me to the thrift store, but every once in a while, instead of buying me Payless shoes, she would buy me Foot Locker shoes. And that's where, like earlier, you were
Oh
talking
yeah,
about going to the freestanding Foot Locker, which is true. The
because your
freestanding
ass
Foot
couldn't go to
Locker,
the mall and get tempted with the rest of it.
correct, right? You had to get like the shoes that were like 2 seasons ago, right? Which
Mhm.
was okay, but
The
that was
crazy colored on sale ones, yeah, those.
yeah,
But
exactly.
you had
But
Air Maxes.
yes, exactly. But yeah, like my mom used to be that type. And like again, I'm grateful for that because she did understand that there had to be a transition. And I know she struggled with it. I know she did. I mean, like, buying me like, going from buying $20 shoes at Payless, right, to buying me 70, 80, $90 kicks was a big jump. But she did it
Oh
because
yeah.
she knew that at that age, I needed to start having these things in order to stop being like bullied and stop being like punished all the time. And again, for that, I am grateful because she did see that. And I don't know if other parents see that. I don't know if your mom saw that, but definitely my mom did. And again, I'm super grateful for that.
Hell yeah. I mean, and it kind of goes to they always made stuff fun too, like, but they wouldn't tell you. Like I look back on some stuff now, and I'm like, how did she make it fun to go to the DMV? Like, you know what I mean? Or like,
Yeah.
I don't get it. Or like, you mean to tell me that that's why the cable goes out every year, the second week of school?
Right, right.
You know what I mean? Like
Absolutely.
I remember I can look back on it now and say that I definitely watched my mom make sacrifices for me.
Yep.
And like, dude, I don't know the feeling that somebody would do that for you, and especially now, like, dude, that means so much to me because it really it means that there's somebody that really looks out for me. You know what I mean? Not
Correct.
that
Yeah.
everybody, not that my friends, my family now, not that they have to sacrifice for me all the time or whatever, but that's a feeling that only that can bring,
Absolutely.
if that makes any sense. And it is very fulfilling, you know.
Absolutely.
And it's given me a lot of confidence, the fact that knowing that she did that
Hmm. Hmm.
is
No.
like, I'm never gonna put my kid in that situation. I'm never going to not do it. Like I'll do the same thing if I have to, but it also has made me more aggressive professionally, I think, too.
I I
Which
I agree
you
with you.
figure out that your effort levels and you got to play politics, but you can make it there. You know what I'm
Mhm,
saying? Like you
mhm.
can get wherever you want to get. Like if I set a goal for myself, I want to make 200 grand a year. Well, if I do all the things, it might suck, but if I do all the things, then that's what I'll make.
Yeah, no,
You know?
absolutely, man. Absolutely. No, I 100% agree with you in that aspect that like, you felt like somebody had your back and somebody had not only have your back, but have your back unconditionally.
Oh yeah.
That's the part that's deep. And you're right. Like, don't get me wrong, like my family today would absolutely have my back unconditionally, right? But like again, like there's something about, you know, the relationship that I had with my mom, that was very much a like she like the whole saying of like they'll take the shirt off their back.
Oh yeah.
100% my mom would do that for me. No doubt. No doubt about it.
No
Like
doubt in my mind.
yeah, it didn't matter if like there were shards of glass coming down from the sky and she had to like fucking sit there bare skin just taking it in order to like, protect me. 100% she would do that. And
Oh my god.
again, like it definitely I think it goes back to what you were saying earlier, which I thought was pretty cool because I'm on the same boat where like it makes you respect other females, right? Like to the point where like you can't see another female excuse me, you can't see another female suffer, right? Like
No.
for example, like if you see anybody, right, like raising their hand at somebody, you're gonna step in, right? Because like
Oh, without
all
a doubt.
all I do is I picture my mother, right? Like, and I'm like,
Right.
fuck, like I can't see another woman do that, and for me, like that's where again, it's another piece of you know, like where I am super grateful, you know, for it. And again, like I feel like I'm a better person because of it.
Absolutely. I mean, I even find myself like, friends of ours or friends of Lacey's that are like single moms or whatever. If we go do something, I'm like, nah, I'll pay for it. Don't worry about
Yeah,
it. Like,
yeah. Mhm.
not that I think not. Let me definitely be pointed about this. Not that I think they all need it, but I know what that would have done for me and my mom in our situation once in a while. You know what I'm
Exactly.
saying? Like,
Exactly.
just that you don't have to worry about it. Like, it's
Mm.
not like I don't look down on anybody that is in the situation that I grew up in, because I know there's a way out of it. You can make it out of it. And sometimes you just got to live with it a little bit.
A- a-
You know, because
Absolutely.
it does build character. I'm sorry, like I I can't say, like you said before. I'm not talking about horrible, horrible things. I definitely always had food. Might not have been what I wanted to eat, but we always had food.
Right.
We always, like, there was a lot of things that I didn't go without to a point where it was detrimental to my health.
Exactly. Yeah. That good way of saying it.
But definitely felt a little low on the totem pole.
I 100% agree with you. I mean, like again, right? It's one of those things that, like, as a kid, you know, like even little things, right? When you used to pull out your lunchbox or whatever, right? Like people used to bring their lunchbox to school, right? Fuck, I got free lunch,
Hell yeah.
right? Like, like I didn't have that.
Remember when they put that shit on a card and you could like save up? So like one day you might not do it, so then you could get 2 lunches the next day.
Exactly. I used to do that shit with the chicken sandwiches, dude, because they were so good.
Yes.
But yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Where they definitely did the card system where like you could save the funds to use it for another day, right?
Right.
Um, but yeah, like I never had that feeling of like you know, like sometimes you see in movies where like these kids are like, hey man, let me get your fudge for a fruit roll up. I didn't have that shit.
No.
Like my shit was like, I mean, I'll trade you my plain milk for my chocolate milk. Like I'll do that. You know what I'm saying? But like, and
Right.
again,
I'll give you
like
my pizza for a ham sandwich.
right, exactly. Like so, like you know, it's one of those things where at the time it was very difficult to comprehend what what other people were going through in terms of like how their lifestyles were in comparison to mine, right? Because again, like I couldn't I don't know for other people, and maybe for you know for the listeners out there, if you guys want to throw out like you know some comments and tell us like what your lifestyle was like. But for me, like I remember, like I said, being poor was not something that we would say. You know,
No.
it was embarrassing to even walk through the line and know that you had free lunch, right? Like,
Right.
I mean, like even even like I don't know if where you grew up if they had the system. I'm pretty sure they did because it was Maryland. But like I
Right.
remember like they had three pricing systems, right? There was the lunch that cost 225, right, which is what you would pay as a normal person, right?
Right.
Then there was like the reduced lunch,
Dollar
which was like
lunch.
right, which is $1, right? And then
Well,
there was
it,
and
it
then there was
started. It started out being called dollar lunch, and then they turned it reduced lunch.
right, yeah, and then you had the free lunch, right?
Right.
So then, like, even like the kid that was on the reduced lunch, he was better than the free kid lunch, right? Like, and the thing was that you got the same shit. It wasn't like you were
Right.
doing different shit. But the thing was that like you were. I remember being embarrassed, like when like people used to like because yeah, I don't know if you had this thing where like you used to enter a number onto a little keypad, and that was your
Mhm.
like your number to check out,
Yeah, you
right?
had your lunch code.
Right, but then you had like these shitty fucking lunch ladies, right? That then they're like, "Oh, you're free lunch. Okay, go ahead." Right? Like, and you're like, "Bitch, you didn't have to tell everybody that." I hated that shit, man.
Hell yeah.
I hated that.
Dude, that or in homeroom class, all the kids that had free lunch got the little like certificate from the lunch thing, and
Yes,
like the teacher would specifically walk and hand them out, like
yes,
not not
yes.
like here's your shit. Like, no.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
oh, here, don't forget your free lunch thing. Like,
Right. Here's your voucher, you poor bitch. Like, yeah, like
right.
that's exactly how
Make
they
sure you
handled
give
it.
that to the lunch lady. Like,
Right, right. And then like all your friends were like, "Oh, bro, like you get free lunch? Shit. I knew you went through this thrift store, motherfucker." Like that's how it was, right? Like, and you're like, nah, I didn't, nah. She was kidding. Nah, like I pay $1. I'll pay $1.
right.
You know?
I'm only on reduced lunch. You're trying
Right,
to get
right.
like, dude, I remember before I realized how it worked. Like, I definitely felt that, but like, I didn't realize. I went to my grandmother and asked my grandmother to fill out my lunch paperwork because I was like, because in my head I was like, I know we're poor, I can't say nothing, but I can just ask my grandmother to fill it out because I'm at her house right now.
Right,
And if
right.
she fills it out with all her information, then I'll have I'll at least be to reduce lunch. I
Yeah.
might even get the full price lunch.
Yeah. No, you're dead on, man. Like I never thought about it like that, but it's absolutely the real shit that happened. And again, right? Like if you look at it today's time, I can see kids going like, "Well, fuck it, why wouldn't I get for free?" Right? Like, but back
Dude,
then,
Paisley School, every kid in the school gets free lunch. The whole school. Like,
you
they
see what I
just
mean?
don't pay for lunch. So, like,
Like that's just the norm now, and like
right.
it's acceptable. It's acceptable. But like back then, that shit was not acceptable, man. Like it was like you were frowned upon because you did shit like that.
But don't you think that maybe it's acceptable now because we all went through it already? You
So
know what
I
I'm
think
saying?
I think you just nailed it right there. I think that it's acceptable right now because we, right, were the kids, and now we are in the position of power, right? Like meaning like we have the positions to make the decisions for these kids, right?
Oh, yeah.
So we go, hey kid, we know what that's like. You don't have to be ashamed of that, right? Like,
Right.
but back then we didn't have that shit.
Right.
We didn't have that shit. Like that was a fucking a classification for you, right? Like
Right.
again, I remember, and I'm dead serious. Like I remember used to feeling embarrassed. Like I remember like trying to go through the lunch line last, just so I didn't have to like admit that I was on free lunch.
Bro, I used to take a shit before lunch every day for that reason. Like, it'd be like lunch period. We'd all go to the cafeteria. I'd be like, I got to go to the bathroom, you know,
Yeah.
and
I like
I'd
I
sit there and
like I
like wait for everybody else and then run in the lunch door as they're closing it, like every day.
that's what I did too. As they were closing it, I would sneak in there and then used to like go through that. And again, right, like even like when you had like one kid behind you that snuck behind you, like you're like, motherfucker, I hope you're on free lunch too. I hope, right? Like because if you're not on free lunch, you're an asshole. Like you're just trying to catch me that I can't afford this lunch.
Right.
So
You're plotting.
yeah, exactly. But no, man, it's so funny the transition in lifestyles, the acceptance in today's society. Um, so for today's episode, I think the moral of the story or the moral of today's episode is going to be one, take care of the people, or thank at least the people that took care of you, right? Be grateful
Absolutely.
for those folks, right? It doesn't have to be, your mom. And I know that, like, for some people, their mom was not the greatest. So I'm not saying that it has to be your mom, doesn't have to be your dad. Like you said, right? Like you were thinking your grandparents, right? Like
Right.
whoever was the person that was in your life that again had your back unconditionally, remember that and try to like fucking pass that down to other people. And then at the same time, like teach your kids that like they need to be okay with what they have, be okay with who they are. And again, right, like I know it's easier said than done, especially for an adult. We as an adult, we can say, just love yourself and be okay. For a kid, that's very difficult. But like I said, my mom did teach me that lesson that like, you know if you give the person the confidence, right, they're going to carry it with them, right? And that's what she did for me. And that's why I'm super grateful for that. So
Absolutely.
that's what I'm taking away from this episode. Now, what are you taking away from this episode?
What I'm taking away from this episode is love you, Mom. And just respect those life lessons that we all learned growing up. And I agree with doing it different, but don't make it to where nothing matters anymore.
Well said.
That's one of my biggest fears is like, now what are our kids going to teach their kids? You know what I mean? Like, remember that you do have a bit of a legacy. If you have kids, if you're a dad, if you're, a mom that's listening to us, like, what's the legacy going to be?
What
are your grandkids going to ask you about?
Yes, exactly. And for you moms out there that are listening, we refer to you as dudettes.
Yes, dudettes.
So just remember that. But no, man, I think you summarized it nicely. This was a good conversation, man. Like you, we started out talking about how like this was a therapy session. This one for sure, 100% was therapeutic. So
absolutely,
yeah,
dude. And we're gonna take it deep on all different kinds of topics. Today was very close to the heart, family. Other days it might be stuff. Other days it's about the lifestyle, man. That's overall what it is.
Nailed it. And on that note, we're wrapping up this episode. Make sure you guys follow us on all social media platforms. We are on Twitter. We are on YouTube. We are on Brandon. Help me
TikTok,
out here.
Instagram, Facebook. We're everywhere, guys. If you have another platform, let me know. We'll make one.
Absolutely.
But please let us know what you think of our episodes here, of our series. I really want the feedback, good or bad. So thank you guys so much, and can't wait for the next one.
Peace.